Decided to maybe try and put a few more of those events on, and this is the first in 2014. And the person who I thought would be great to do it with is Stephanie Roper, who is also the wardrobe angel. So yeah, I'm gonna pass over to Stephanie now, who's gonna just share a little bit of something about what she does and who she is.
So my name's Stephanie, and my business is called the Wardrobe Angel. I set it up about 2.5 years ago after I had the experience of having to dramatically reduce the size of my own wardrobe, and it got me thinking about how women shop and how they dress themselves and how they manage their own wardrobes, and how we're sold to all the time, but we're never actually told how to put things together and how to reuse things in our wardrobe. So the whole concept of the Wardrobe Angel is helping clients understand how to dress for their lifestyle and their body shape, but also how to recycle what's in their wardrobe, whether through upcycling, whether it's through me selling it for them, or whether it's through just donating it to a charity shop. So aside from that, I also have a column in the Halifax Courier every month, and I'm fashion editor of an online magazine called Earth, Wit and Style magazine. I also run big swishing events, which are big clothes swaps events, and lots of other things as well in between.
Yeah.
All to do with clothing.
Yeah, well, tonight we're going to be focusing on upcycling. So Stephanie's going to just tell us a little bit about the concept of upcycling. And although Stephanie's area is in fashion, I'm very intrigued by the whole concept. And I know I've spoken to Stephanie about it quite a few times now. The whole idea of reusing the products that we have is just an amazing way to, well, one, not waste money, but also not waste product, and adds more waste into the environment. So yeah, Stephanie, what basically is upcycling to those who don't really understand the concept?
Well, the way I think of upcycling is one man's trash is another man's treasure. It's taking something and giving it a new purpose, which either makes it more functional or more beautiful, and takes it away from being waste into taking it into being useful. So I do a lot of upcycling with clothes, but people do a lot of upcycling with furniture, and Michelle, you do a lot of upcycling with candles and things like that, and Bunsen burners. So it can go into every aspect of life.
Yeah. And I know that you've come across some inspiring people along your journey, and quite a varied bunch too. So I'm hoping you can just maybe share a few examples of those interactions and the people you've spoken to, because, well, you've spoken to some quite impressive individuals.
Yeah. Well, last year I did a talk at a WI, Women's Institute group in Manchester city centre. They're the fastest growing and one of the biggest WI groups in the UK. And they were having a big clothes swap that night, and they'd invited 3 stylists and image consultants to talk about what they did. And I thought I was on the same platform as these women, and we were all essentially going to be talking about the same thing. So I decided to talk about what was going into landfill, and how much of our wardrobes we don't wear, and what the knock-on of fast fashion has been to the situation of us filling up our landfills in this country. So I did a 20-minute talk, all these facts, and it was quite doom and gloom. But in the audience there was a researcher from ITV, and a couple of months later she rang me and said that they were doing a Tonight show called Throwaway Britain, that was going to be a 1-hour special on how much was going into landfill in the UK and how much we weren't recycling, and they wanted me to do the clothing bit. So I did that aired last August, and on the show we did how to upcycle clothes with a group of women who'd never upcycled before. A lot of them just threw their clothes in the bin when they'd finished wearing them because they couldn't be bothered to take them to charity. So we did upcycling with them. We taught them how to do a clothes swap, and there was also like a sit-down face-to-face kind of interview with the programme producer. And then around the same time, I was reading the Observer magazine, and in it there was an advert or an article about the Festival of Thrift, which was run by Wayne Hemingway. So I, at the time, I was writing for this ethical and sustainable magazine called Egg Mag. So I emailed the PR company for Wayne Hemingway and just said, can I have a chat with him about the Festival of Thrift, because that just sounds awesome. It just, all the branding just looked really good fun, and it didn't feel like it was going to be kind of all hippie and earth with it. It felt like it was really funky and really fresh. So I had a Skype chat with Wayne Hemingway really early one morning, And I'm a bit of a fangirl of Red or Dead. When I was a teenager, I had loads of Red and Dead stuff. I had these big foamy shoes, and it was all I could do just to stop myself from saying, "Oh, Wayne, I love your stuff." I was like, "Be professional. Let's have a proper interview." So we had a chat, and he said he'd always been interested in vintage and reusing things. But the one thing that he really didn't like is that when people talk about recycling and upcycling, he said if you tell people that they're not doing a good job, or if you tell people they're not recycling enough, then they're not going to do it. They're not going to feel motivated to do it. And if you beat them around the head with all the facts of you're not doing enough, you're not working hard enough, you're going to demotivate them even more. So the whole concept for the festival was that it was a festival of enjoyment, and it was a festival of people to come and really celebrate upcycling and recycling. And it was for all people, like young kids, families. And on the day, it was in September on a weekend last year, 2 days, the sun was shining, it was absolutely beautiful. And there was loads of just really, really cool stall holders there with clothing and jewellery, loads of food. There was a big swish event. You could take your clothes and take other people's clothes away. It was just a really cool day. And to me, that was just what upcycling and recycling should be about. You shouldn't feel bad for not doing it. You should feel good because you are doing it, and it's a really positive thing to do. So he's one of the really cool people that I spoke to. And then also last year, when I was getting ready for the Marks and Spencer, the ITV thing, I got in touch with this guy called Adam Ellman, and he's head of Plan A at Marks and Spencer's. So you know when you see a Marks and Spencer truck go by and they've got the rounded front, and it says on the side Plan A because there is no Plan B. He's in charge of their sustainability and ethical setup. And I basically badgered him on Twitter and just said, "Can you help me? I'm appearing on ITV. I need some really good facts about what's going into landfill." And they've just launched their swapping campaign with Joanna Lumley. So he emailed me back and he said, "Here are some facts. This is what we found through our research." And it was really frightening what goes into the bin. So every 5 minutes in the UK, 10,000 items go, like items of clothing get thrown into the bin, and that's 1 in 4 purchases. So it's an epidemic that people don't understand what they can do with their clothes when it's come to the end of their life cycle in their wardrobes. But speaking to him was great because he's obviously really directing where Marks and Spencer go in terms of their ethical and sustainable outlook. And the fact that he just took the time to even send the email to me was just awesome.
Yeah, because it's so hard to speak to people like that. And I just want to touch on the throwaway Britain thing that you mentioned there, because, I mean, just using an example of my own, I got some shoes not so long ago, back in the summer, from ASOS, and they came, and after a couple of days the stitching started to come away, so I had to kind of redo it myself.
Yeah.
But I remember just passingly, mentioned to mum ago, it's just how it is these days. You buy clothes seasonally. We buy clothes thinking, oh, if it lasts a couple of months or it lasts spring or summer, it's done okay. Where in actual fact, people used to buy shoes to last them years and get them resold, and just keep it going to pass down actual clothing and jackets.
Yeah.
But it's just got to a point where people, and especially it's true with young people, they go to places like Topshop, buy a new wardrobe for the summer, and then it just kind of gets, like you say, thrown away, and then it starts again come autumn.
For me, it's more that people have started to devalue clothing so much. So I used to have a part-time job in Selfridges, and one day this woman came in and she was buying her daughter some stuff from Whistles, and she turned it all inside out. She checked all the seams, all the stitching, and then said to me, "Oh, can you get another one of this? This has got a mark on the inside of this dress." No one ever does that anymore. No one ever checks the quality of their clothing. And I was really surprised, and I thought she really values her clothing, and she values the £50 or £100 that she's spending on this dress. But no one else does that. They just pick it up, they think, "Oh, that'll do," and they go and buy it. There's no thought of where that clothing's come from, or if it's badly made, or what it's actually worth. But I think a lot of it is to do with like the fast fashion retailers like Primark that they take catwalk trends and then they put them on the catwalk straight away. So there used to be a lead time of when things were on the catwalk, you'd have to wait 3 to 6 months to actually see it in the stores. But now they can get something from the catwalk into the shop in 6 weeks. And the quality of that is really poor because the design time is so short. But people nowadays, I don't think they value clothing, they don't see it as the same way. It has become very disposable, people do just throw it in the bin because they do just see it as a waste product that they're finished with. It's not that they value it enough to take it to the charity shop.
That's a really interesting point. So I suppose it is just trying to change the perception of value. If you buy a pair of shoes and you actually value them, whether they cost £20 or £100, when they start to get a bit worn out, if you value it, you're going to think, no, how can I reuse this?
Yes.
Whereas if you don't value it, you think, I'll just throw it in the bin because it's like an apple core.
Because it's that, if you spent, people often say, oh, I like your top, and they go, oh, it was only £3.
Yeah.
And it's all become about the monetary value of it, but it's not about the personal value or the, oh, I love this top because I've worn it here and here and here, and so bought it for me. It's kind of reversed.
Yeah, and I think it's like that in most things. I mean, people used to buy furniture so they could pass them down, so they could be heirlooms. Whereas, I mean, I don't think I've ever bought anything in my life as of yet which I would think, oh, this is worthy to be passed down.
Yeah, gonna put it in my will.
Sentimental value, but certainly not in terms of, physical value.
Yeah.
Whereas people used to get wardrobes and beds where this is going to last forever, this is going to last longer than me, and it's just not the case anymore.
No, people can go to IKEA and kit their house out and then that's it. So yes, it's a very different perspective.
So there you go. It's all about just valuing what you buy a little bit more, and then I think upcycling becomes a bit more comprehensible because you think, yes, I want to keep hold of this.
Yeah.
And that's when the creative juices can flow, because you think, right, what can I turn this item into?
Yeah.
And the possibilities are endless, really.
I think a lot of my maybe not older clients, women who may be in their 50s and 60s, if they're baby boomers, they have a mentality of not to waste anything.
Yeah.
Because they grew up after the war, they were born after the war, their parents have instilled in them this thing of you can't throw anything away. So either they've hoarded everything or they've bought quality and they still want it to last. So I had a client called Sharon, who's a size 16 hourglass, and she had loads of suits from the 90s that were really boxy, really not so great for her figure. So we took them in, we added scarves around the neck to turn them into shawl collars, turned the cuffs back, and we redid them all. And she realised that that was going to add the individuality to her wardrobe. It was also cheaper than going and buying another jacket. So for her, the upcycling was really cost effective, but it was also a really good way of expressing her personality through her clothes.
Yeah. I think that's also the case, because sometimes you try and look for the perfect item, whereas actually you can find something you like and there's nothing stopping you from adding something or taking something off. And I think individuality in Britain used to be a big thing, and I don't know, maybe it's devalued a bit over time. Everyone seems to have the same stuff because they're shopping in the same places, where you can take something, wear it for 6 months and then go, right, what can I do to it now to just give it a little bit of something.
You've got to have the relationship though with a good seamstress or somebody who's got the skills in order to do what you want to do with something. And I've got a wicked seamstress that I work with in Manchester who I can take something and go, right, Laura, can you do this with this? And she can do it. But I think that's where maybe it falls down a bit, is that some people, because they're not used to thinking like that, they would just think, oh, well, I'll just either throw it in the bin or just give it to charity and I'll just go and buy something new. Or it's the time that it would take to get something altered that they just think, oh, it's not worth it. So it's about striking a really good balance and encouraging people to use like the local skill base and the local seamstresses that say just build that relationship.
We are in the home of Totally Local here, so that kind of links in very well with something like that, because it just gives you a reason to actually interact with the local companies and the local people around. So I'm guessing you've well, I can only assume you've worked on and come across some rather amazing upcycling projects. Both you've worked on yourself, you've already touched upon a couple, but also just things that you've come across. I know you blog about certain upcycling projects and about certain people. I know that you've interviewed someone in this audience. So tell us a few examples about these projects.
For 2 years running, I've been involved with the Recycle for Greater Manchester fashion show. And they have every year just designers who either will take stuff from charity shops and recycle it and upcycle it and send those outfits down the catwalk, or they've got this amazing designer called Adnan Bayat who makes dresses out of things like cling film and newspaper. And last year he made a dress out of 34,000 paper clips, and it was amazing. The photos are on my Facebook page if you want to have a look. But that's the kind of creativity that you just think, that's awesome, and it's really changing the perception of what clothing is, because it's out of products that you would usually associate more within the household, not actually to dress yourself in. So yeah, the Recycle for Greater Manchester project, that's amazing. And then I've been involved with a brand in Leeds called Antiform, and the owner Lizzie gets all the material for her clothing from within 20 miles of the factory. So it's reduced like transport times and costs that way, but also it's stimulating the local economy because she buys these end rolls of what would be otherwise wasted material. So she reuses it in that way. They do a monthly clothes swap, which I volunteer at as well. And there they have a seamstress there that can say, okay, try this, try that, and make things more, I don't know, more appropriate for you or just more appropriate to your personality. So that's really exciting. And then I've worked with a jewellery designer called Kate Wood, who's based in Huddersfield, and she goes around charity shops. It's like the best job. She goes around charity shops and she buys like leather handbags, leather belts that are maybe vintage, and then she cuts up little bits of them and then molds them into like bracelets and adds little bits to charm bracelets. So everything's really individual and everything's really vintage, but she's also made it look really new and fresh. So she works with a lot of really awesome like coin producers in the UK as well, and she uses them in her jewellery. So she's really into like the upcycling and the recycling like that. And then I chatted to Michelle over there the other week about her upcycled products, which are awesome. They're just awesome.
They can quite often be a form of art. I mean, they have more often than not. I mean, Michelle's in particular has practical form, but they're also artistic, and there's something that you get and you think, man, I want to put this on the wall, even if I'm not going to use it every day, because it's something different, and it is becoming a form of sort of art form. It's kind of got that urban sort of warehouse feel to it a lot of the time.
And I think with a lot of upcycled stuff, it's very individual. So I think people are maybe getting a bit bored of going to IKEA and having the same stuff that everybody else is having, and buying upcycled or recycled products is a really good way of stamping individuality into your life, whether it's in your home or it's in your clothing or it's in your office.
Yeah, well, I was telling you the other day that I've currently got a stack of boxes in my room, and I want to kind of have something that's going to put those boxes in. But rather than just go to IKEA and buy, you know, a normal table or a normal dolly or something, I like the idea of maybe buying a few different components of things which are cool and somehow bring it together, because it is all about having individualistic things in your life which makes you go, yes, I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
I'm proud to have my things in that. I'm proud to be a part of that. Rather than just, oh, I got it from IKEA, it was £25 and I put it up in 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing. But again, it's well, not even educating, that sounds really patronising. It's more just saying to people you can have fun, and going to charity shops is okay, and removing the stigma, I think, of doing things like that.
Well, this rolls on quite nicely into the next question, because I think upcycling in particular can become a sort of communal event. It's something families can get a great deal of enjoyment about, because you take one thing and go, right, what can we create from this? So just share your thoughts on upcycling in everyday life, because we have a lot of creative people of eclectic taste in here, and your area is in fashion, but I can just imagine all these creative minds are starting to think, ooh, I can incorporate this into my work, in my office, in my living room. So what are your general thoughts on upcycling as a whole, and how people can maybe embrace it?
And I've got a Pinterest board dedicated to this, because I think it's really interesting when you take something and you take it out of context and you make it do something else. So somebody on Pinterest had they had bookends, but they'd drilled them into the wall and they were using them to stack shoes on, so to take the space off the floor and put it onto the wall, which is an awesome idea. And then wire hangers, they're so annoying, like when you get them, if you've been to dry cleaners or whether they're just hanging in your wardrobe, and they'd use them as they'd put loads of nails in the wall and they'd use them to hang their necklaces off. So it was just like really little things like that. And also when you do get necklaces, when they break or when you suddenly like fall out of love with them, you can use them as art. So you can wrap them all around the wire hangers and use that as a kind of art installation. So just like little things like that are just so interesting and quirky and different. And it just makes you, when people walk into your house, look so much cooler, because they're just like, oh my God, where did you get that? You're like, oh, I made it. Amazing.
Yeah, well, we were having our meeting in here a couple of days ago, and when we were talking, we were like, just look at all the products on the shelves, you know. I mean, think of all the times you collect glass jars or, you know, packets, and you end up throwing them away, but there's going to be a use for them. And even if you yourself don't have a use, there's local artists in the area like Michelle who would be more than happy, I'm sure, to take stuff off their hands and go, actually, I will make this into something. And like I said, I feel like I think you mentioned something to do with Chinese boxes, and you can use that for your lunchbox the next day.
Yes, if you
There's
get like
little
a
things.
Chinese takeaway and they deliver it in the little boxes. Like my mum, she's got a whole cupboard just full of Tupperware that is now that she puts like other lunches in and little things like that. So it's like even just reusing it in that sense. And then we were talking about those little like goo pots that you can buy from the supermarket, and they're in a ceramic little pot, and then you can reuse that when you're making another baked dessert, and it's a dish that you don't have to go out and buy again. But some people don't think like that. Some people just think it's like one purpose, and then they either get rid of it or they chuck it in the bin. So it is maybe like, I don't know, just thinking outside the box a lot of the time.
It is, and I went to a talk last week with Dominic Wilcox, who's an artist, but he's kind of an inventor as well, and he's just this ludicrous inventor who comes up with these crazy concepts, but they have practical use. They're not often made into something practical because they're just art and they're just concepts and ideas, but usually we look at it and go, wow, he's just taken an everyday object, taken it and just disrupted it and turned it into completely something else. And not only is it an art form, but it's the kind of thing where he makes a prototype, puts it up online, and it gets shared 10,000, 100,000, a million times. And yeah, he's a fairly well-known artist, but not to a point where he would share millions of videos or millions of images. But he does something and people go, wow, he's taken something I see every day and he's put it on a wall and now it's a Coke hook.
Yeah.
He did something like that, and I think it was with like a spatula. And he took like 4 spatulas, a nail, and basically made something that you can just turn, and he just bent part of it. Little things like that.
Little things. I think that's where Pinterest's really cool, because we're living in a really visual society now with the advent of Facebook and Instagram. But Pinterest, people have loads of upcycling things on there, like with glass jars, they spray paint the inside and they turn them into really cool vases and things like that. So I think Pinterest is really a great source of inspiration.
Yeah, absolutely, and you don't always need to think it up yourself, because there's things online where you can look at things and go, oh wow, I'm inspired by that, I want to put my own spin on.
Exactly, you don't have to, you can get all the the tips and all the little do this, all the instructions. Awesome.
Fantastic. Well, in a couple of seconds we're going to take questions from you guys. So before we do that, I just want you to give a nice sort of round of applause to the wardrobe agents.